G'day, Tragic here, and well, that was Galaxy Defenders. Now, I did offer to. I kind of finished the game a little bit early, but I don't think there was a real problem. There was one guy, quite rightly, because I never would do this if I wasn't playing it online for you guys, but he said, "How could you finish the game where there's still scientists alive?" I totally get where you're coming from, but I just felt the game was done, and I asked everyone on the channel, and there was a lot more people saying that they'd like to move on to something new. So I'm just going to call it finished here. And like always, I'm just going to have a little bit of a chat about Galaxy Defenders. Now, as you can see, basically this game is huge. Especially the first box is massive, and then there's another 4 boxes that came with the second wave of the Kickstarter. And even though that there's a scenario that you play through, there is so much game here. Now, sure, as you get better at the missions, the tactical decisions get less meaningful because you work out global strategies that work in those missions. But again, that's kind of the fun of a strategy game. Now, there's basically 2 types of games, right? There's strategy and tactical. Well, 2 types of strategy, I guess you call it. Now, tactical is sort of on the fly, but strategy is grand scale. A good example of a tactical game with large strategy is chess. That's the great hybrid that has both tactical and strategic thinking. But many games that are touted as strategy games are actually tactical games. And a big part of that is the modern board game concept of randomization. For example, Arkham Horror is a tactical game because you are reacting to the given situation at the time. Almost no lessons, I mean there's a few, but almost nothing you learn in one game can be carried to the next. Actually, an even better example is Twilight Imperium. Twilight Imperium, fantastic game, and there's a couple of things you want to be trying to do in a strategic thinking way. But the individual games are so different, they're so randomized, different maps, different people picking different actions and all this kind of stuff, that most of your decision making is tactical, as in it's reacting to the current situation. And you can't take a lot of the lessons that you get in one episode of, one game of Twilight Imperium, you can't take to the next game because turn 1, it's completely different. Now, this game is definitely a tactical game. But unlike, some of the ones I just mentioned, it's scenario based, which means you get better and better at those scenarios as you play it more and more. And I can see how some people think that in a way that puts a lifespan on the game. To combat that, obviously, they've just given you so much. I mean, I'm on mission 2 in my series. There's another 10 missions in the campaign alone. Plus there's the difficulty levels by using the different types of aliens. And then there's another 8 missions that are just published on their website. And then you've got 2 entire other campaigns that are about the same length, about 8 to 10 missions, plus extra missions coming to their website. So I don't really think that that's an issue with this game. And of course, they've even released an extremely good mission editor where you can just make your own missions. Basically, it's an application that you can just click on things and it will build the maps and build a nice PDF for you, and you can build your own missions on the fly. I've actually built a bunch of different missions that I've played, and one of my goals this year is to produce an entire new campaign. I'm just waiting for the Season 2 Kickstarter scenario builder to be released. It's just that everything's been delayed because there's a new game by the same guys, which is kind of an evolution of this system called Sword and Sorcery. So it's, instead of sci-fi, it's fantasy, and it's a bit streamlined, like you don't do the double rolling and stuff, so it's a lot quicker to play, and they removed death from the game. Like, you can die, but you kind of walk around in this weird ghost form and stuff. It's been used in a few other games, but anyway, the point is that this game is huge, and it's good. I mean, it is good. I find that it's probably one of my favorite solo games. I play this solo quite a lot. It does have some problems, though, when you're playing with other people. Group dynamics are very different to playing solo, partly because there's an investment of time in the organization for people to meet up. You know what I mean? And some games that have randomness inside them can be extremely frustrating. So, for example, if you this game, I mean, we did very well. I mean, we lost one character, but we played very well. But imagine if we were playing that game that I played on the channel with people, and that guy dies. He is out of the game. This game, Galaxy Defenders, actually has player elimination. And we're talking about a game that can be quite long. You know, no one wants to go and organize their time and then just have a couple of bad rolls and then be out. Or even worse is just a couple of bad rolls and the entire scenario just futzes on you. And that can be actually quite frustrating for groups of people to play, which is one of the things they're trying to fix in the sequel, by the way. I mean, Sword and Sorcery. But even with that downside, I do think this is one of the best co-op games as well. Co-op games tend to be, well, the big popular co-op games are the Arkham Horror styles, which are dice rollers much like this. This is just a dice roller. So you've got Arkham Horror, you've got, Eldritch Horror coming out now. And then you've got some other ones which are more interesting, like Robinson Crusoe, which really takes the co-op idea to another level. And, but my point is, all those games require a lot of player organization between the players. Okay, there's a concept in a lot of these games, and it's in Galaxy Defenders as well, because you really need to work together. But there's a concept of, the leader syndrome, where one player kind of plays the game for everyone and just tells people what to do. Robinson Crusoe is particularly bad at that, and so is Ghost Stories. Both fantastic games, but because they're so difficult, you just can't make errors. So it gets, people with strong personalities just sort of take over the game. But because Galaxy Defenders is so tactical, you know what I mean? Like, the decisions are so on the moment. Like, you have a grand strategy, but it's sort of, you have tactical decisions. And also the way the dice rolling works, it kind of removes a lot of that problem. I've never seen that problem come up in Galaxy Defenders. Not that Galaxy Defenders isn't a group effort. If you don't work together, you're gone. But the individual choices for the Marines are actually pretty clear. Shoot the guy who's closest to me. Get to cover. All those kind of things. So you organize a grand goal, but the individual decisions of the player are actually independent. This is kind of the way Arkham Horror works as well, which makes that such a great co-op game. So even with the drawback of Galaxy Defenders having this kind of really brutal randomness to it, like, look at my biotech in this video. There's no way he should have died, right? He was surrounded by 3 other people in close quarters, but we just had a couple of bad draws on the encounter deck, and he got dragged away and eaten alive by that spider. Great thematic idea, but, frustrating. And if that was in a co-op situation, and, my mate, like, I've got a mate who comes down every now and then. He comes from, he actually lives in Newcastle, which is, miles away. I mean, Australia's a big place, so it's like driving 3 countries through Europe or something. But if he came down to play Galaxy Defenders and we're playing through the campaign and his character dies early in a mission and he's got to wait like 2.5 to 3 hours before he can play, I mean, that sucks. Also, in addition to all that, the rules of Galaxy Defenders are a little dicey. I mean, there are some real holes in the game design. And this is something to be expected with first-time designers, which I believe they were, or at least designers that haven't done a lot of games. And some good examples are the close combat rules, or shooting through a window. Like, you've got line of sight through windows, but, how does it work if you're behind the window? It's never mentioned in the manual. You've got close quarters. Like, I play close quarter rules that you have to always attack the alien, okay? Because that's actually a rule in the book. But the reason our biotech died is because of a house rule that I do, which says he can't heal himself with his own gun because he has to attack the alien, because it makes no thematic sense for me to attack, for him to stop and heal himself in the middle of a hand-to-hand fight. But the rules don't mention anything about this. All the rules say is that you can't fire ranged weapons beyond the guy attacking you. because the intent of the rule is that you've got to fight the alien, but it's not specified. And there's a huge amount of these kind of holes in the rules on top of the rules being fairly finicky. You know, there's a lot going on that you've got to remember to do. And Eldritch Horror really changed the landscape with its way of directing the player using, like in Eldritch Horror, right? These symbols turn up on this track, and then when you look, then all you have to do is whenever you see that symbol on the track, you just look at every component on the table and you trigger every component that has that symbol. And what this means is that the player doesn't need to track anything. It's a brilliant idea. And this is one of those games that doesn't have that kind of system in place. So there's a lot of things you've got to remember, to keep remembering to do. For example, in my game, I forgot that you can attack through windows. Like, I knew that windows didn't block line of sight, you know, which has all the movement issues. But I also forgot that you could melee attack through windows, which is cool because, you know, aliens can drag you through the windows. It's so obvious. So yeah, of course they can do that. But these are the kind of things that kind of slip your mind when you're actually playing because you're thinking about so many other things. And it's very easy to get the AI movement incorrect. Like, you know, oh, actually that guy is out of line of sight, so he'll do something else. Or actually he moves towards the closest guy and this guy's closer because he can actually see through the window, blah, blah, blah. So there's quite a lot of persnickety little rules in this which can trip people up, which some people don't like. Now, like all those kind of things, it's all about how well you know the game. After playing for a while, and you know, I actually play this game quite a lot despite all the errors I make on my video. It's just that, you know, this is the first time I've picked it up for about 6 or 7 months or whatever. And when you're making the videos online, it's very easy to get, you know, confused or whatever because you're thinking about so many other things. But like any game, the more you get into it, like a great example of this is Mage Knight. Mage Knight has incredibly, you know, weird rules that, well, they're not weird, very logical rules, but there's a lot of them and they all interact with each other and you've got to keep it all in your head as you play. But as you play and as you get better at playing the game, you play it more and more, it becomes it has a very natural flow to it and you stop making mistakes, you know, and you just keep going and keep going. There are games that you can never get perfect runs on, like Arkham Horror. I don't care who anyone is or what they say. People always make mistakes playing that game because there are so many transient rules. You know, like there's a rule that you'll have to do every turn in the whatever phase in one game that you won't see for another year and a half because of the random nature. And these always get forgotten or whatever. And that's what Eldritch Horror was fixing. I'm kind of rambling a bit here. My point is, let's get back on point. My point is that Galaxy Defenders, while it's a great game, does have a fairly convoluted rule system, and to make matters worse is that some of the rules are really not explained well enough in the manual. So if you look at the Galaxy Defenders forum, there's quite a decent site. I mean, it's not a hugely popular game, so it doesn't get huge amounts of traffic, but there is quite a large amount of variant rules that people have introduced to the game to smooth it over, to get past this problem. There's an entire new way of doing action systems. You know, you've got all these other different rules that people have made up to basically fill the gaps in the rules and also smooth over some of the more finicky little things that the game has. Now, personally, like I was saying about the Mage Knight, is that as you play the game, these rule consistencies become less and less of an issue, especially as you're going through that campaign. By the time you get to like mission 3 or 4, the game is really punchy and smooth and fun. But for example, the game I played today, or over the last week or whatever on the channel, there was quite a lot of stop-starting going on because it's been 6 months. So all those little, oh, that's exceptional, oh, that's how that weird rule works, has been forgotten since the last play. So it's kind of one of those games that you get reset if you don't continually play it, much like Mage Knight. But all in all, I think Galaxy Defenders is probably one of the best solo games. Extremely fun game in solo, and one of the reasons what makes it such a great solo game There's the same reason that Arkham Horror is such a great solo game, and that is it's about rolling dice, and when you roll dice, you take away decisions from the player. There's a lot of games that people play solo that are not really supposed to be played solo. So you're making decisions for one player or the other and you have information that in the real game setting that player wouldn't have. Not so in this game. It's actually you actually play the pure version of the game. And that's fantastic. Really, really great. Now, would I recommend this game? Absolutely. I would definitely recommend this game, but there is a caveat here. And the caveat is that games that are this hard, and, there are people, I see on the forums people going, the game isn't hard. That's rubbish. The game is hard, especially if you play with the proper rule set, which includes close combat, includes, the ability to damage, friendly fire, all that kind of stuff. It is a difficult game, and there's actually quite a lot of interesting decision points. And because of that, it can feel a little long. So we're talking about 12 missions in the campaign, each mission going minimum 60 minutes if you're playing quickly. Like the mission, like a lot of games, the mission timer is just not true, especially if you're joking around, having a few beers, whatever, you stop for lunch. So we're talking about a large time investment, especially if you want to experience the campaign mode, which is, kind of like a legacy system, except it can reset. I don't know why more games. I mean, I love the idea of legacy systems, but I just cannot handle the idea of the game not being able to be reset to 0 if I want to play it with a different group or again or something. It's ridiculous. So, but like a legacy game, you have to put a lot of time into this. And because it's so random, your games can end incredibly quickly, and become untenable. And this is frustrating. See, games like Ghost Stories, which is a ridiculously hard co-op game, or Yggdrasil, or I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like that tree, that Viking tree that holds up the world, whatever. Those games are ridiculously difficult, but they take 20 to 30 minutes to play. So who cares? You lose, boom, you can set it back up and play again like that. You lose a game like this, you have lost 2-3 hours. And, Arkham Horror has that same thing where losing is a huge deal. And that can be quite frustrating. Now, the new rules, it's probably still I haven't played the new game. I've just read the rules. The new rules to Sword and Sorcery is trying to address a lot of that stuff. They've removed the multiple rolls, so you don't roll all those defense dice, so you can be more assured of your damage going through and make better plans. It also removes player death. It also does all these other kind of things. It's basically a streamlining of the rule. What I'm trying to get here is, unless you're really enamored with the sci-fi theme, which obviously I am, I'm a big sci-fi fan, and, sci-fi beats fantasy hands down every time, all day, every day. But if you're not really into the theme, or if there's not a particular reason, I think I would recommend the new game, even without playing it, because I am absolutely certain it's going to be the same quality components, same quality game, but it's just going to be a slight evolution of the rules. In the same way, Eldritch Horror is a lot popular because it's an evolution of the rules of Arkham Horror. Now, we won't get into the Arkham versus EH debate in this video, but will I like the new one as much as Galaxy Defenders? I don't know, because I love Galaxy Defenders. There might be a nostalgia thing going on, or the theme, because it doesn't interest me as much as sci-fi, might not gel. We'll find out. But I actually believe the Kickstarter for Sword and Sorcery still has the late pledge open if you're interested in that game. On a side note, I've actually been working on my next tabletop simulator mod, and it is Galaxy Defenders. I've even had permission by Gremlin Project to do it as well. I sent them an email and said, look, I'm making this mod. Is that cool if I publicly released it? And they said yes, which is excellent. So keep an eye out for that. Basically, the whole thing's finished. I'm just doing scripting, but since I have to learn what Euler is and how to do if loops and all this weird programming stuff, which is kind of like a bit magical to me, it's really slowed down. But anyway, keep an eye out for that. That's coming soon. If anyone wants to help me with the scripting, you're welcome to contact me. Email address is on my YouTube page in the About section. Okay, but apart from that, Galaxy Defenders, fantastic game. Strongly recommended, but it does have a slight randomization angle to it, which can feel frustrating. So stay tuned. I'm going to do the voting system, which I did last time, which I did a few times last year. So you can pick the next game I'm going to play. So keep an eye out for that video. And also, there'll be an announcement video soon for something a bit fun we're doing at the Guild of Tube Tables. So keep an eye out for that. And I will see you guys